everyone, welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I am Gushin Galan, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. Apple announces that its artificial intelligence head will retire early next year, handing leadership of the company's machine learning efforts to a veteran engineer from Google and Microsoft. Indonesia's disaster agency says the death toll from the massive floods and landslides in Sumatra rises to 631, with 1 million people evacuated and rescuers still searching for 472 missing residents. The Venezuelan government lashes out at the International Criminal Court after the ICC shuts its Caracas office, saying there's been no real progress in investigating alleged crimes against humanity. Donald Trump accuses election officials in Honduras of trying to change the November 30 presidential vote, warning of consequences as the tight race remains too close to call, and he publicly backs the right-wing candidate. And thousands rally in Sofia and other Bulgarian cities against the 2026 budget, with some protesters clashing with police and pelting officers with rocks and firecrackers. Let's begin with renewed tensions between China and Japan. Japanese and Chinese vessels were locked in a fresh maritime standoff. This happened near the disputed Senkaku Islands on Tuesday. Japanese officials said 2 Chinese Coast Guard ships entered Japan's territorial waters around the islands early Tuesday and left a few hours later. Japan said the Chinese vessel sailed towards a Japanese fishing boat, prompting the Japanese Coast Guard to order them to leave. Tokyo said the Chinese ships violated international law by entering Japan's waters and asserting their own claims. Japan also said that more Chinese vessels were still in the surrounding area, though China rejected Japan's claims. Chinese authorities said the Japanese fishing boat entered what China saw as its territorial waters. Beijing said its Coast Guard took necessary control measures and warned the vessel to leave. China's Coast Guard said it would continue its patrols around the disputed islands and would keep defending what it considers its maritime rights. But this was not the first sign of friction. A similar confrontation was reported on November 16. The Senkaku Islands, known as the Diaoyu in China, have remained a long-standing flashpoint between the two countries. Relations had already been strained after Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, suggested last month that Japan could take military action if China attacked Taiwan. Her comments triggered an angry reaction from Beijing.
Japan's deployment of offensive weapons on the southwestern islands adjacent to Taiwan is a deliberate attempt to create regional tension and provoke military confrontation. Coupled with Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's erroneous remarks on Taiwan, this trend is extremely dangerous and warrants high vigilance from neighboring countries and the international community.
After the incident, both countries summoned each other's ambassadors. China warned its citizens and students about traveling to Japan, claiming without any evidence that security risks had increased. Chinese travel to Japan dropped sharply after November 15, and reports said more than 40% of flights scheduled for December were cancelled, totaling over 1,900 flights. Beijing also urged the public to avoid cultural events linked to Japan. China reportedly renewed its ban on Japanese seafood, but has not yet imposed stronger economic measures like restricting rare earth exports. In a move to salvage ties, Prime Minister Takaichi later said she and President Xi had recently agreed to work towards a stable, mutually beneficial relationship. She added that Japan's long-standing position on Taiwan, although, remained the same.
At the end of last month, President Xi and I confirmed the broad direction of comprehensively advancing our strategic, mutually beneficial relationship and building a constructive and stable relationship. The government's position remains unchanged.
Meanwhile, Beijing stressed that Taiwan was an internal Chinese issue and said it would not accept interference from any external power.
phone call between the leaders of the US and Japan is a matter between the two countries. We will not comment on it. The Taiwan question is China's internal affairs and will not allow interference from any outside forces.
Taiwan, the self-ruled island, is claimed by China as its own. Beijing has repeatedly said it will use military force to take control. And the latest maritime standoff, diplomatic warnings and travel disruptions underline how quickly tensions between Japan and China have escalated. With both sides holding firm, the dispute around the island and around Taiwan continues to deepen. Let's shift focus to India. In a big boost to its defense forces, the country has reportedly initiated the procurement of Israeli Heron Mk2 drones. The reported procurement follows emergency measures put in place after India's Operation Sindoor against terror outfits in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. According to reports citing Israeli defense industry sources, all three branches of the Indian Armed Forces have decided to purchase these advanced drones manufactured by Israel Aerospace Industries, or IAI. However, the number of UAVs being procured has not been specified. The Heron Mk2 is medium-altitude, long-endurance drone. It has a maximum takeoff weight of 1,430 kilograms. The drone can operate continuously for 45 hours and can fly at an altitude of 35,000 feet. The UAV, capable of carrying diverse payloads, has a top speed of 150 knots. The Mk2 represents an enhanced version of the Heron UAV. The model is already deployed by the Israeli Air Force and by more than 20 other entities globally. And India may not only buy these advanced UAVs, but may also manufacture them. If that happens, it would pave the way for full technology transfer, deepening India's role as defense equipment producer at a global level. According to reports, both New Delhi and Tel Aviv are now focusing on manufacturing the Mk2 in India. This could be done through partnerships with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Elcom. Reports cite an IAI official who stated that Israel is working to meet the conditions required for manufacturing on Indian soil. The official said the vision is to create an Indian version of the Heron. This, as under the Make in India push, indigenous content standards mandate 60% local work and manufacturing for upcoming major tenders in this UAV category.
Very proud to say that India was one of our best partners for that. So there are a lot of UAVs in India. We are very proud to take a major role in this effort, and I leave the decision makers in India to decide whether to purchase, and we will always be a part of it and always support their decisions.
Now, India began procuring Heron Mk2 drones in 2021. The purchases were made under emergency powers following tensions along the line of actual control over Galwan Valley clashes with China. The Indian government initially ordered 4 units, 2 for the army and 2 for the Air Force. India primarily uses Heron drones for long-range surveillance along its borders with China and Pakistan. And to boost the country's defenses, the Indian Air Force is looking to upgrade its existing fleet of Heron drones under Project Cheetah. India has also been inducting Heron Mk2 systems equipped with satellite communication. This enables extended range operations and longer missions. If India begins manufacturing these high-tech drones, it would mark a major boost to the Modi government's Make in India initiative and would expand the country's footprint in the defense sector globally. Our next story regarding major developments surrounding former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia has as her worsening health sparks concern. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was deeply concerned about her well-being and stated that India stands ready to extend all possible assistance in whatever way required. His message shared on X paid tribute to Zia for her years of service to public life in Bangladesh for decades. She has been one of the most influential and polarizing figures in Bangladesh's political arena. The widow of former President Zia-ur-Rahman, she has been battling several serious health issues in recent years. Even with her declining health, Khaleda Zia continues to hold significant influence and remains a key voice in the country's politics. Zia, who is now 80 years old, is a former Prime Minister of Bangladesh and the longtime chairperson of the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party, or BNP. Zia has been suffering from a lung infection and was admitted to Dhaka's Evercare Hospital on November 23 and remains in intensive care. She made history as the country's first female prime minister and served 3 terms between 1991 and 2006. Zia was jailed in 2018 for corruption when Hasina was in power. Shortly after Hasina's ouster, Khaleda Zia was released. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, has publicly thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In a post on X, the BNP said it expresses its sincere gratitude to the Honourable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, for his thoughtful message and kind wishes. The party added that it deeply appreciates this gesture of goodwill and the expression of readiness to extend support. Reports emerged from Dhaka that her medical state was being seen as extremely critical by some leaders in her party, while others claimed she was stable and under close medical surveillance. In a latest development, a 5-member specialist contingent from China's medical team arrived in Dhaka earlier on Monday to assist her in her treatment. Party spokesperson urged the general public to rely only on updates from Zia's personal physician or the official medical board. They cautioned against speculative reporting given the sensitive health crisis involving long-standing complications affecting her liver, kidneys and heart. The reaction from Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes amid a deepening political crisis in Bangladesh following the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted last year during mass protests and has been since convicted in multiple cases, including a death sentence handed down in absentia on November 17, a development that has deeply polarized Bangladesh. Dhaka's interim government has sent a formal request to India seeking the extradition of Sheikh Hasina, adding a diplomatic layer to what was already a fragile situation between India and Bangladesh. India has a long history of supporting its neighbours during crisis. With Prime Minister Modi's message, any measures extended by India could set a precedent for health-related support between governments during critical situations. Our last story is about a high-stakes diplomatic push aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. And at the centre of it all are 3 familiar names. President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, the president's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Witkoff and Kushner are in Moscow today for talks that could shape the trajectory of the deadliest conflict in Europe since World War II. The US delegation is set to hold talks with President Putin in a few hours. The White House says it is very optimistic about the latest peace blueprint drafted by Washington, especially after a weekend of intense discussions with Ukrainian negotiators in Florida.
The administration feels very optimistic. Obviously, you've seen, Steve, that the president's entire team, including Special Envoy Witkoff and Secretary Rubio and the vice president and the president himself, Secretary Hegseth as well, have been working so hard on this effort, and they all really want to see this war come to an end. And so just yesterday, Sunday, I believe that was yesterday, they had very good talks with the Ukrainians in Florida.
Interestingly, Russia's official readout doesn't mention Kushner at all, but it does confirm a meeting between President Putin and the US Special Envoy. The round of diplomacy follows a political storm triggered by the leak of a set of 28 US draft peace proposals. Those documents rattled officials in Kyiv and across Europe who believed the initial plan leaned too heavily towards Moscow's demands. Europe pushed back almost immediately. A counter-proposal was drafted and a tense meeting in Geneva followed. Out of that came what US and Ukrainian officials are now calling an updated and refined peace framework. But the biggest question remains, will Vladimir Putin accept it? So far, the signals are mixed. Russian commanders briefed Putin on Monday on the capture of 2 frontline towns, Pokrovsk and Vovchansk, battlefield gains that strengthen Moscow's negotiating leverage. President Putin has hinted he may accept parts of the American plan, but only if Ukraine agrees to surrender more territory, a condition Kyiv has repeatedly said it will not consider. Ukrainian President Zelensky has been clear. Ukraine's sovereignty is non-negotiable and the territorial question remains the toughest of all. Speaking during his visit to Paris and subsequent meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron yesterday, Zelensky said he expects to discuss key issues directly with President Trump soon. But he also criticized the idea of leaving European allies out of post-war reconstruction planning.
The territorial issue is the most difficult. The issues of money and reconstruction, in my view, and I am speaking honestly and we have discussed this, are, of course, hard to finalize without the presence of our European partners, because the money is in Europe. To me, this does not seem entirely fair. And the issue of security guarantees is also crucial. We need concrete commitments from the United States and concrete commitments from Europe.
Macron echoed that point, insisting that any final deal must include both Kyiv and European powers.
When we talk about peace, each one of us has a role to play. For Russia, it's to stop the aggression and has not given any signal, any proof that go into this direction. Ukraine is the only one that can talk about territories. It's about its own territories and sovereignty recognized by international law.
French officials say Macron and Zelensky also spoke with Witkoff when the Ukrainian president was in Paris yesterday. As of now, Zelensky has reached Ireland, where he will meet the country's prime minister and attend the inauguration of the Ireland-Ukraine Economic Forum. All these come amid a widening corruption probe in Ukraine that has taken away key aides from President Zelensky. Macron, during his address yesterday, also touched upon this issue, saying that a democracy should know how to solve such problems.
Is our role to give lessons to Ukraine? Not really. It also happens that we sometimes have scandals like this. A democracy should pride itself in knowing how to solve that through an independent legal system and while knowing how to put to justice any decider, whoever they are.
As Witkoff and Kushner sat down with Putin today, the stakes could not be higher. A refined peace plan is on the table. Washington is optimistic and Kyiv is cautious, while Europe is insisting on a seat in the room. For now, the world watches, waits and hopes. The next move bends the arc of this war towards peace, not escalation. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gushin Galan and we'll see you right back here at the same time. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.
The countdown has begun. In 3 days from now, Vladimir Putin will arrive in New Delhi. It will be his first visit to India in 4 years, also the first since the war in Ukraine began. So the stakes are high. Major announcements are expected. Both sides are keen to make it a successful visit, and we at Firstpost will be covering it extensively for you. We'll be looking at all aspects of the India-Russia relationship, the strengths, the challenges and the opportunities, and we'll begin with the defense ties. This has been a key pillar of the bilateral relationship, the defense ties. And tonight we have two major developments to report on that front. One is from Russia and one is from India. Let's start with Russia. They want to move beyond the usual arms deals. Right now it's a fairly straight equation. India buys weapons, Russia sells weapons. But now they're looking for something deeper, a defense partnership where both militaries support each other on the ground. That could mean sharing military bases or allowing ships and aircraft to refuel or restocking supplies and getting repairs done. Russia wants all of this with India. It is ready to approve a defense pact that achieves all these goals. In fact, this pact was signed back in February this year. The only thing left is for it to be ratified by Russia's lower house, that's the State Duma. The agreement is called RELOS, the Reciprocal Exchange of Logistics Agreement. This pact would facilitate a closer defense relationship for military exercises, for disaster relief operations, and also for peacetime operations. So how does it help India? It would mean working closely with Russia in regions